Welcome to a virtual tour of JLS on our celebration of Manufacturing Day, which is part of the Manufacturing Institute, which is of course part of the National Association of Manufacturers. I recently joined the board as a member of the National Association of Manufacturers, and I'm very excited to be part of that. I'm Craig Souser, the President, CEO, and one of the major stockholders in JLS, and again, I'd like to welcome you here today. Unfortunately, we can't literally have you here, so we're bringing you in virtually, is all too often is the case these days. Any of you that are attending this online, we would welcome to come visit us at the appropriate time, and unfortunately that's just not now. We have some pretty strong protocols in place to limit visitors, and it's been effective. None of our team to this point, over 75 people, have been infected by this COVID virus, and we aim to keep it that way. We know that NAM is very proud of everything the manufacturers have done in combating COVID, and we really follow their lead on a lot of our initiatives. So let's talk about JLS and our role in all this. We're located at 20 Innovation Drive in York, Pennsylvania. We didn't name the street, but if we did, we would have probably picked that name. It's a great name. We do innovate here. We're known for that. In fact, we literally invent, as you can see on our what we call Hall of Fame wall. We have a number of patents that we've already had plaques made up for. We have a number of patents that are still being finalized and certificates have been issued, but we don't have the plaques yet. So we encourage anybody, whether it's a member of our sales team, which has happened in a few cases, or someone in our engineering group, or wherever in the company, to think outside the box, come up with ideas and hopefully inventions, and again, in many cases, we patent those. Much of what we do is centered around the end-of-arm tool on a robot, because we're gripping food in almost all cases, and we need to handle it gently so we don't destroy it or damage it in any way or damage the packaging that it's in as we handle food that's in its naked or raw state as well as after it's wrapped. JLS has been in business a long time. We started the company, it was founded by my father in 1955, so we just recently celebrated our 65th birthday. So why don't we go have a closer look at JLS. So welcome to the office space of JLS. The overall facility is 105,000 square feet, and the manufacturing space we're going to see takes up 85,000 of that. So we have about 20,000 square feet here for our general offices. When we bought the building in 2018, it was a little gloomy, so we've recarpeted, repainted, we've raised the ceiling and put in skylights to create some natural lighting, and of course created this wonderful working environment for collaboration, and then through COVID had been forced to push everybody out, and we're slowly integrating some of our folks back into the workforce, but we still have folks working remotely. So I always like to come over here during a tour and look at our boxes and see that hard drive getting activated and exercised, so I know that our fellow engineer who's working at home is actually working. Great to see. Now we're going to go and have a conversation with one of our newest additions to our team, who did 3 internships with JLS and now is part of our mechanical design group. Meet Adam Cavanaugh. Adam, you went to York College, studied mechanical engineering, passed with flying colors, we know, and did 3 internships at JLS. Could you talk to us a little bit about what excited you and interested you in coming to work here as an intern, and then why that experience led you to want to come to JLS?
Well, I think just manufacturing in general is a very cool field, and getting to see kind of the background, everything that goes into what is being built to support everything, and what gets made and that we see every day in our lives. So I think that was a really cool avenue. And then just after my first internship, knowing the environment and you know, really getting that family experience here just kind of brought me back. So.
Well, you're always known for wearing a lot of JLS apparel. The hat is a signature of yours. Could you tell us a little bit about, you know, some of what you do day to day now that you're here full time?
So for me now, I'm a part of the mechanical design team. So I do a lot of the 3D modeling, tool modeling, things like that, detailing drawings and such, kind of, you know, building everything in the 3D world that gets built out on the floor later. So
does that allow you to use some of your creative energy and juices?
Sure does, yeah.
Yeah. So do you have any examples of that, or something you may have done recently that tapped into your creativeness?
Recently I got to do some tool changes with Jim Mason that kind of incorporated ideas from different tools that we saw. And like out in the test lab we have 3D printers, so we got to fool around with some ideas and kind of see them in action and see what worked and what didn't work. And we got to make some tool changes that really improved picking and placing the product.
So if you're one of these students, maybe in junior high school or even college, that's thinking about a role in manufacturing, maybe robotics, what's your basic message?
It's a growing field for sure, and the jobs aren't going to go away. So there's always opportunities, and especially in robotics, it's very cool.
Awesome. Well, as you know, we have a number of inventions and patents on the wall. We're looking forward to the day that Adam Cavanaugh's name is on one of those. So thank you, Adam. Great talking to you.
Of course, thank you.
So the next stop on our tour is our Susquehanna conference room, one of our larger conference rooms, typically used for our visitors. But the more important thing in this room is I wanted to show you a picture of my father, Joseph L. Souser, or JLS, for whom the company was named. He founded the company in 1955 as a manufacturer's representative firm, and we evolved quite a bit over the years, became a distributor, became a value-added reseller, and about 20 years ago we got into the actual manufacturing of equipment, and that took on all kinds of different forms. Certainly today and for the last 15 years we've been involved in the food industry, and we've been involved exclusively with robotics for the food industry. So let's take a look at some of the tooling that's required to make these robots functional in handling food. JLS does provide equipment outside the food industry, but it's not very often, so everything we're going to talk about is really related to food handling. One of the things that we're very proud of here is our own vacuum generators that are based on a Venturi-like jet pump. We worked with Pennsylvania State University to develop a model so that we could get scientific about manufacturing these devices and be able to predict performance and get the characteristics that we need to handle food gently yet very quickly when we move it around with the robot. One of the tools that always interests people and what we've done is a tool that we developed to handle tortillas, which are very light but also very fragile. And we had experimented with vacuum and found that it was damaging the product. So we went to the Bernoulli tool technology, which is the same principle that allows an airplane to fly. We pass air at very high velocity through this opening that's very small, creates high flow, and that also creates lift in the opposite direction. If you haven't studied the Bernoulli principle, look it up. Because that's how you fly in an airplane. This allows us to pick up a whole variety of sizes of tortillas. We've handled everywhere from 5 to 13-inch tortillas with tools like this. We also use mechanical tools quite frequently. All types of different grippers. These blue gripper fingers that you see were printed here on one of our 3D printers. This particular tool is always of interest. It uses an FDA-approved elastomer that allows us to pick up chocolate and road items without creating marks or leaving any scars, so the consumer isn't scared off that, you know, a machine handled it. As you can see, there's a wide variety of different tools and different technologies that come to play. all allowing our engineers and designers to get very creative and yet work with science that we've developed on previous applications and build from the JLS experience. So now let's go take a look at the actual robots that we're building that utilize some of these grippers. So I'd like to welcome you to the assembly area for JLS. This 85,000 square foot area is where we put our equipment together and prep it for final assembly and testing, and then of course onto the customer. Everything JLS produces is made of stainless steel because we serve the food industry. None of the equipment here was actually manufactured in terms of parts or fabricated by JLS, as we rely on local suppliers that are all available for various items that we need here in central Pennsylvania. Let's take a closer look at some of the equipment on the floor that's getting prepared for shipment. This equipment was recently tested here in full production mode by our engineers and our customer, who visited us virtually to sign off on the equipment to make sure it was ready for action. So now I'd like to talk to one of the newer members of our team, our service team, Thomas Cudney. Hey Tom, have a few minutes to spend with us? So Tom, like Adam, did 3 internships here at JLS. Tom is also a graduate of York College, but he studied electrical engineering. So Tom, maybe you could tell us a little bit about what attracted you to JLS initially and what made you want to start your career here, and we hope end it here.
So what attracted me initially was the fact that the opportunity let me to do multiple projects at once. I'm not a guy who can kind of sit around and do the same thing over and over again, and JLS has a lot of applications that allows me to do that, especially in the field service group now. After I spent 3 internships here, I really got a good sense of sort of the applications department, and now I get a good sense of the field service department, which is the whole sort of back end of the business, which is great because I get experience in that part of the business, and then I get to go to, hopefully, some engineering experience later in the future, and then maybe one day a lead engineer here.
Yeah, so you can sort of work your way around and through the company to gain that experience that'll pay off for you later as you progress through the organization. And we're very excited about that, of course. So we have some equipment here that we've recently tested, as I just mentioned, and probably you'll be involved with the startup of that. Usually they go pretty smoothly, but I know on occasions you've been out in the field and you've had some challenges, so maybe you could talk about one of the memorable experiences you had in dealing with some issues in the field in an actual food plant.
So one of the more memorable experiences I had is, I would say when I first started, first couple months when I first started, I went out to a site, to a customer site up in Boston, and they were completely down. And I had never seen this style of system before. It wasn't one of our older systems, and I had never been exposed to it. And so I went there not knowing what to expect, and I kind of jumped off the cliff, as they say. I was able to get a hold of some engineers here, some engineers with some of our vendors, and just everyone came together and in order to help me, because I was the boots on the ground. And being new, I didn't really know what to expect, and so everyone really came together and accomplished the goal as a team, and they actually ended up running at the end of the week, so it was a pretty good outcome.
We were really pleased with how you handled that. It was a very dire situation. Our other resources, more experienced resources with that equipment, had already been deployed elsewhere, and it was pretty much a panic on the customer's end, but you did a great job keeping a positive attitude, and I think you got to use some of your creativeness to think through some of those problems. Could you talk to that just a little bit?
Yeah, so to solve this issue, there wasn't really a standard solution. We had to try several different methods to not only learn things, but to see what the outcome was of that method. So like the standard, we had a robot going out of range, just as a typical example, and I had to basically do methods of finding where the robot was that I've never used before. And I've talked to other techs here, and they've only used them a couple of times, and it was almost a sense of, well, we've already know this method doesn't work, let's try this other method. And that turned out to actually help a lot, and that was, I would say that's almost
the deciding factor of what led me to get it running is that one particular method that we don't really use a lot anymore.
Very good. So you literally were having to think out of the box, use your creative things, and some of your, obviously your engineering talents you learned at York College. Well, we value the job you do, and we look forward to some of those next steps, as I'm sure you do as well.
Thank you. Yes,
Thank
I
you,
do.
Tom.
Thank you.
So we're here with Dave Shaffer. He's one of our lead engineers, been with us here for a couple of years. And Dave, didn't start his career at JLS, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But Dave, if you could just tell us a little bit about what a lead engineer does at JLS and how you execute projects and some of the skills that are required to make one of these systems work.
Well, once the job's actually secured and we get it from apps, the lead engineers touch everything from electrical, mechanical, they assist in the design, and you're basically working with a team of individuals to create the solution for the customer.
Who's typically on that team? What other disciplines get involved with the lead engineer on a typical project team?
We have our mechanical design, electrical design, we have project managers, sales people. So yeah, it's across all spectrums.
Great. Yep. So you didn't start at JLS. We wish you had, but we were happy to have you join us when you did. You came at it from a really completely different industry. Didn't have a lot of skills relative to using robots before. I doubt that you'd ever work with a Delta robot in particular. So what made you want to make a jump? You were with a manufacturer before, but again, a completely different industry. What attracted you to this particular area and to JLS as a company?
Well, when the job opening had presented itself, a recruiter contacted me and went online and seen what JLS did. And it was definitely interesting. I have an automation background, but like I said, not with robots. So once I came in, did the walkthrough, I just knew that I wanted to be part of this organization. So yeah, it's from what we're doing day to day, it changes. There's plenty of growth opportunity, lots of different things to learn.
You've had some opportunities here, certainly in your time with us, to use those creative energies and talents that you've got. Can you think of one particular situation where you really had to go out of the box to solve a problem?
It's not so much every job has its own set of challenges, but right now with the way, it's no longer just loading trays or packing cases. Some of the stuff that's coming through the door now, raw foods, sandwiches, so I think the end of arm tooling is where you're going to put a lot of your creativity into actually picking the product and getting it placed properly. So like I said, each job has its own complexities and challenges, so I can't think of just any one thing.
Well, great. So you're never bored?
That's absolutely not, no.
Terrific. And we hope to keep it that way.
Yeah, exactly.
Dave, thanks for spending a few minutes with us.
Yep, thank you.
You bet. So we're now going to walk over and see one of our largest systems that is on the primary product handling side of what we do, where we're actually touching the fresh product, in this case, tacos, and loading them into a cart. So here we are in front of one of our larger systems that I mentioned earlier. We're going to take a closer look in a minute. But first, let's talk to John Watson, who's one of our lead assembly people here, and learn a little bit about what John does at JLS. John, you've been with JLS over 21 years, which is amazing for both of us to think about that longevity. You've had a number of different roles at JLS and been in the field and installed a lot of equipment, often been the guy that people ask for. So maybe you could talk a little bit about your background prior to joining the company and some of the things that skills that you've acquired since coming to JLS.
Well, when I originally started, I didn't have any knowledge of electrical panel work or anything, and I had some good teachers along the way. And I learned a lot, and I learned a lot on hands work, a lot better. But we had some good teachers that aren't with us anymore, but
yep. When you're around 21 years, that'll happen. So today, you're one of our supervisors in the assembly area, and specifically, what all does that entail? What group, what team's under you?
I am in charge of the electrical group. I make sure everybody has work to do, as either doing the on the floor here or just washing down the frames or whatever, just some work to do, keeping them busy.
Yep. I would think with our activity level the last few years, keeping people busy really hasn't been all that challenging. If you keep them on the right track, maybe is at times.
Yeah, that can be a little challenge.
Yep.
But,
So we've called on you many times in the past to go out in the field and help do installations. Any of those that come to mind when you think about being in a food plant and experiencing that environment, and maybe some of the things that surprised you when you got there?
How cold it is. In the meat plants, it's pretty chilly. Not quite as bad in the other factories, but definitely the cold is one that gets you.
Yep. Yeah, and you know, some of the jobs that we help people fulfill on the food processing side deals with that. The robots don't mind being in a cold environment, but fortunately our team only has to be there a short period of time, and we're helping, you know, get people away from some of those environments that really aren't places for humans in the first place.
Yeah, they're not fun places.
No, not at all. Well, John, we're going to let you get back to work. We appreciate you spending a few minutes with us. Thank you. So let's take a little bit closer look at this pretty large system that's on our floor. It's got a number of robots on it. What this system is doing is handling fresh tacos that are processed by a very large company that makes a lot of products for the quick serve restaurant industry, or QSRs. And this particular system is one of the more hygienic solutions that we make. It has all stainless robots. It has our somewhat new open channel frame construction that is very popular with folks in the meat industry. So we take tacos that are coming at pretty high rates of speed, pick up the whole product and put it into a carton at, again, very high rates of speed. So tooling was critical, flow of the product to us, flow of the cartons to us is very important. And of course, that robot motion that you see here running is really what we do. So I've asked Erin McGruder to join us. Erin joined JLS a few years ago and is part of our project management team. Erin, thank you for spending a few minutes with us. Erin, when you were looking to make a change in your career, I know that you took your time. You didn't have to have a job right away, and you're very deliberate in what you were trying to find in your next employer and hopefully your longer term career. Could you tell us what it was that you were looking for and how JLS fit into that?
Yeah, definitely. I kind of looked around at several different companies, and one of the things that really stood out to me were JLS's values. I would always look for a company with great values, but not only that just list them on the website, but that you can see them and they're put in practice. And when I interviewed with JLS, right from the moment that I met with HR and met with so many of you all to talk about the company, I knew that not only those values of people, how you put so much trust in people and how much dedication you guys have with the customers, that this was a great place to be, and it's a place I wanted to be and grow at.
Terrific. Well, we're so happy to have you. We have a large system that you're very familiar with behind us. Getting ready for a factory acceptance test next week. Guys are busy, you know, getting it prepped. But this customer, like most customers, has had schedule challenges. They wanted it real quickly, then they wanted it delayed, then they wanted it real quickly again. Not unusual in our world. So, you know, you're one of the people that's really on point to try to keep schedule maintained and the customer satisfied in terms of our delivery. Could you talk through how the team addresses some of that, and maybe even the supply chain where they come into play?
Yeah, definitely. So one of the things that I really love about JLS is that we're a big team. We're one of the things, so we all work really well together, and when you're a project manager, you're kind of working with a lot of different cross-functional teams. So just getting together in a room and really understanding what are some of the challenges for us delaying it, what are some of the things that we can do to push it forward. Everybody was able to come up with plans and how that would fit together, whether it was, do we have space inside of our building to hold it, or do we have the service team that's available to be able to go install at a different date. So really coming together and making sure that all those pieces fit together, and we were able to do that pretty quickly and adjust for the customer to make sure the customer get what they needed.
So you worked for one of the world's largest retailers earlier in your career, totally on the other side of the supply chain from what we do. You've joined a manufacturer, you've joined an equipment company. Can you talk about what intrigues you in manufacturing, maybe in robotics, but certainly in the manufacturing sector versus on the retail side?
Yeah, definitely. When you think about being on the retail side, you think about usually the end customer and what they're going to do with something. Being on the manufacturing side, you can apply a lot of those things that you've learned, like transferable skills about, hey, how do I look at the end customer? What are the things that they need in manufacturing? How can we think about that at the front end rather than at the back end? So coming into manufacturing from there, I can really understand how some of our engineers are looking at those pieces and making it sure that it's good for the end user.
So you really see that creativity of our engineering team, and even on your own level, of how that has to happen to satisfy that requirement?
Exactly. So you get to see some of the challenges on the end user side and see how they kind of solve for some of that here and how they might think about that in a different way and in the manufacturing side. And I think JLS does a really good job of that because our engineers get in a room and we do a lot of closeouts where we talk about our lessons learned to make sure we transfer that onto the next project and the project after that so that we don't lose any of those learnings and ideas that we have from one company we can transfer to another, and it might help the end user at the end.
Absolutely. Well, Erin, you do a great job for us. We thank you for spending a few minutes with us. So I want to show you some of our demo and trade show machines that we have here on the floor. We have an example of all three different styles of machines that we build. This particular machine we call a Talon, but it's handling primary product that's unwrapped, unpackaged, actually placing it, in this case, into a thermoformer. We do all kinds of testing and show this machine at a variety of trade shows throughout the country. This is another example of our hygienic design with an all stainless robot execution. Downstream of this machine is often a system like our Osprey that would take thermoform packages coming at it on a conveyor, very random, use a camera, vision system to identify the package as the right package and also know its orientation so it can tell the robot how to pick it up and put it into one of these cases so it can get shipped to the customer, usually a grocery store. In addition to that, we've been working with a new technology that we call JLS Track. It's quite interesting. It uses a shuttle system made by our partner B&R to handle, in this case, cartons at very high speed, but precisely in a very flexible manner. And it's essentially a linear motor that gives us the independent ability to manage these carriers as they go through the system in sequence to do their job. I noticed Tori's over here. Tori's one of our new additions to the team, joined us about a year ago in marketing. Tori, could maybe just have a short conversation?
Absolutely.
So, Tori, I know you didn't know a whole lot about technology, at least this kind of technology, when you started at JLS. You've had the opportunity to go to a couple trade shows with us. Could you talk to us a little bit about what brought you to JLS and some of the things maybe you've seen at a trade show that you had no idea you were going to see?
I had an internship at an automation company, so I started out with a lot of interest in automation, and I came across the ad on LinkedIn, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's right in New York, perfect. Then trade shows, oh my gosh, I had no idea the scale of this industry, and that really was eye-opening. The first one that I went to was Process in Chicago.
So Tori, one of the the main job that you came here for to help us with was social media and to get the JLS brand further established in the social media world. You brought that skill set largely with you, but what were some of the challenges that you've had to overcome or learn, techniques to get our message as a manufacturer out to this younger audience than we've traditionally appealed to?
Well, to start out, I did not have very much experience in any Adobe products, so I had to learn a lot of Photoshop to be able to create the graphics and stuff for social media. I've also had to learn a lot of vocabulary to be able to write these posts, get the messaging to the right people.
Very good. Well, Tori, we appreciate your efforts here and thank you for spending a few minutes with us.
Yeah, absolutely.
So next, why don't we take a walk over to our R&D area, our test lab, and talk to Corey, who's our principal test engineer. Let's take a closer look at some of the things we do in here. We have a system that we put together, part of our Osprey Flex offering, that does vertical orientation of packages. And to have a little better discussion about it, we're going to meet Tori Wagner, who is our test engineer here at JLS. Tori, appreciate you spending a few minutes with us. So could you tell us about the challenges in trying to make a test fixture that obviously wasn't addressing any one specific application requirement, had to have a lot of flexibility in how you went about figuring all that out?
Yeah. So as Craig mentioned, we recently added the Osprey Flex to our product line. This is our solution for vertical case pack. So since we added that, we started evaluating a lot of new applications and opportunities using vertical case pack. The problem was we didn't have a good way to test them. And each application we look at uses different size cases, different product. So we really needed a test setup that was modular. So what I did was I built the entire thing out of aluminum extrusion. Makes it really easy to attach different guides and bearings and things like that. We also made it so it's all adjustable, so it's motorized. You can change the height, and you can change the spacing of the doors and everything like that. And this has allowed us to look at a number of different applications using different size cases and things like that.
So it expanded your horizons in terms of creativity. Not only did you have to get creative in some of the tooling you developed, you had to get creative in just how we were going to present the packages to a tool.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Accomplish that. So I know, Corey, you're often challenged on short notice to do a test on a product or a package we've never seen before, never handled anything like it.
Yep.
And you end up using some 3D technology. Could you speak to that just for a few minutes?
Yeah, so a lot of what I do is supporting our sales and applications group. Anytime we are looking at a new application that we've never handled before, a lot of times it comes to me. What I'll do is I'll evaluate the product and design an end-of-arm tool solution to handle the product robotically. And the way that I do that is utilizing our 3D printers that we have in-house. This allows us to do rapid prototyping and turn around prototypes pretty quickly. I can design a part and within a couple days have it in my hand and actually put it on a robot and test it. And that's a very powerful tool for not only building confidence for ourselves, but as well with our customers.
Absolutely. Yeah, you do a great job with that. I think you have one of the coolest jobs here because you get to experiment with so many different things. Yeah. So in doing all that, you came at JLS for one job, and after we met with you briefly, we said, you know what, we think you could be really successful in this new role, which you've been. What was it that attracted you to JLS initially?
Initially it was because JLS works in this space of automation and robotics. That's where I always foresaw my career going. I think there's a lot of exciting things happening in robotics and automation. It's really like the forefront of innovation in manufacturing. I never wanted to be just like an electrical or a mechanical or a programming guy. I wanted to work in a space that would, I'd be able to work with all those things and learn as much as possible. So that's initially what attracted me to JLS.
Yeah, I think if I remember, you had a degree in one discipline, you were pursuing one in yet another discipline.
Yeah, I went to school for electrical engineering and I was actually working as a mechanical designer.
Right, yep. Which gave us the thought, well, this guy could be great in a test engineering role, and you have been. So, yeah, Tori, thank you for everything you do, and thank you for spending a few minutes with us.
Yeah, no problem. It was my pleasure.
So, I'd like to show you a little bit about our culture here at JLS. People are everything to us at JLS, and an important part of any manufacturer, of course. But we really put a lot of pride in our people, and we want them to stay fit. So for many, many years, we've had a fitness facility. Last year, we added a Peloton to the mix, and it became quite popular. Unfortunately, with COVID, we've had to curtail some of those activities, but we still do keep our gym open. We have very strict cleaning and sanitizing protocols, and only one person is allowed in here at a time. But if you should come to JLS and you're going to spend some time here, bring your fitness outfit and give it a whirl and get some exercise while you're here. I want to thank you all for attending this tour today. If you have any questions about JLS, please visit our website, our Facebook, our LinkedIn page, www.jlsautomation.com. This tour will be on the website going forward, so if you missed part of it or want to look at it again, give it a look. And again, thank you for your attention, and let's go manufacturing in America.